Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you some romance recommendations, my absolute favorite genre, and a lot of these are ones that I feel like are not popular, that I personally have never heard anyone talk about. Some of them I read years ago when I was younger, but I remember absolutely loving them when I was younger, so I'm still going to recommend them in this video. Later romance recommendation videos will probably be more books that are kind of up to date, books that I've read more recently, but some of these are ones that I've read quite a while ago, and I wanted to go ahead and just recommend them because they're different. They're not ones that everybody talks about, and I'm hoping that some of you pick them up and love them as much as I did. Okay, the first recommendation that I have is The Slam from Haley Lovell. This is the Hemsworth brothers. I believe it's just a duology. I have read both of them, but The Slam is the first book in the duology. So this is about a young man and a young woman. It's a new adult romance. The two love interests have known each other for a while. The girl has Asperger's, and she has asked the man to help her learn social cues, and he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to be entrusted with her care. He doesn't even want her there. I believe they're on vacation, if I remember correctly, and he doesn't even want her there with them, let alone to help her learn social cues. But he does go ahead and try to teach her, try to help her. Lines start to blur. He starts to teach her some other things, and a relationship forms. So I loved this book. I immediately picked up the second one after I had finished it because I am someone who I love books that have main characters on the autism spectrum. I think it's super cool that they're represented. I love it because it shows them as normal, regular, everyday people, not autistic people. You know what I mean? Like it gives them their own, it takes away the stigma a little bit, I think, of people on the autism spectrum being less than. And so I really enjoy reading books with autistic main characters. So I know that's part of the reason why I loved this one so much. But aside from that, I loved the relationship with the two of them. I thought it was cute, fun. There was a lot of drama, obviously, with a lot of romances there are, especially with young adult and new adult romances. But I just really loved this one. The next book is Silence from Natasha Preston. This one is a trilogy. I have only read the first book in the trilogy, and again, this is one that I read years ago. And this is about a girl named Oakley who doesn't speak. And she hasn't spoken for 11 years because something super traumatic happened to her when she was 5, and she has not spoken a word since then. She does communicate like very minimally through physical actions, but other than that, she doesn't communicate at all. She's super bullied at school, but she has one friend named Cole who she grew up next to. He's her neighbor, and he has never seen her as anything other than perfect. And so their relationship starts as just a friendship for many years, but it does end up turning into a relationship. And this book is so much more than just a romance. One, the genre. There's suspense aspects of it. It's much deeper than just your typical romance because, you know, the traumatic thing that happened to her when she was 5 is obviously a traumatic thing, and you do revisit that during the novel, and some other pretty horrific things happen to her as well throughout the novel. So it's not just a romance, there's a lot more to it. And this one was just very different than any romance that I've read before. And I really recommend that people give this one a shot. The next book I want to recommend is Dark Fever from Karen Marie Moning. This one is one that's a little bit more popular, I think. More people have read this one than the other two. And this one, I've read the first 10 books. The 11th one actually just came out a few days ago, and I plan to pick that up in a couple weeks. But this is a series about a girl named Michaela who finds out her sister was murdered in Ireland, and she has one clue on her sister's phone. And so she up and leaves, goes to Ireland to try and solve her sister's murder and figured out who killed her. But pretty much as soon as she gets to Ireland, she finds out she is not just a regular girl like everyone else. She can see the Fae. Even though she thinks she's human, she can see the Fae, and she doesn't know what they are. She's just walking down the street and all of a sudden starts seeing these creatures she's never seen before. And she meets Jericho. And it's a long time in the series before we find out what Jericho is, but she meets him. He's a super grumpy, abrasive man who comes off as wanting nothing to do with anyone, really. But that doesn't stop Michaela. And so he starts to help her, trying to figure out what's going on with her, help her with the fact that she can see these Fae. He decides to help her try and figure out who killed her sister. But he also wants her to help him find this dark book that holds a whole lot of power that pretty much everyone is searching for. So this is a fantasy romance. It has a lot of books. There's a lot of things going on in the series, but that's really just kind of where it starts, because obviously I can't give you much more information than that because it'll be spoilers. But Michaela and Jericho's relationship is a very slow burn. There's not much of anything romance-wise other than like the anticipation that happens in the first book. So this is, like I said, a very slow burn type romance, but it doesn't really matter because there's a lot of action and things going on throughout the books in the fantasy aspects of it. So this one I absolutely love. It might be my favorite series of all time, like as a whole, that I've read so far. So I love this series. I always recommend it to people who like fantasy or romance because I just think it's fantastic. All right, now we're getting into the like steamier books. So the next series that I would recommend is the Rough Riders series from Lorelei James. The first book in the series is called Long Hard Ride. The names are very telling. These are adult romances. And the first one is about this girl named Channing who over summer decides she wants to shed her inhibitions and go on the road with real cowboys and see what that life is all about. And she meets Colby. Colby is one of those guys that has a new girl every night, who doesn't really worry about feelings or anything like that. He's untamable. But the second he sees Channing, he realizes that he wants her in a little bit more of a long-term situation. He pretty much wants her as his own little buckle bunny. He asks her to come along with him on their road trips from rodeo to rodeo, but there are stipulations to the relationship between Colby and Channing. He wants complete submission, and he wants her to be okay with his traveling buddies, Trevor and Edgar, to be allowed to participate. These books are very, very steamy. I cannot stress that enough. All of them are. But each one follows a different set of love interests that are in Colby's family, pretty much. It follows along in the different men in Colby's family. And I liked the majority of the books. I don't think there were any that were less than 3 stars. and I just think this one is fun. And I read all of them, and there are a lot of them. So obviously I enjoyed them enough to continue on with a large series, but it is a lot of just smut and very, very, very relationship romance focused. There's not a whole lot else. Yes, there's family aspects that they have because they do have a very close family, but most of it is just focused on the romance. Okay, the next series that I would recommend is the Troubleshooter series by Suzanne Brockman. The first one is called The Unsung Hero. And this first book is about this man named Tom who is a Navy SEAL, and he gets a head injury. And while he's back at home trying to heal from his head injury, he sees this international terrorist in his hometown. And he's trying to prove to his commanding officers that this terrorist is in his town, and they're not really believing him because of his head injury, because of the fact that they just don't understand why the terrorist would be in his town. But he knows that he has seen this terrorist, so he decides to make his own little makeshift team and try and take down this terrorist. While he's back home, the girl next door that he grew up next to, Kelly, who is a doctor, comes back home as well. Growing up, he was the bad boy, but he has always longed for Kelly. And so he uses this situation because he brings her on his team, his makeshift team, to take down this terrorist. He uses this situation as his one last chance to have a relationship with Kelly. This is a series that follows different events with military members. So I really liked that aspect of it because it's very action-packed, it's very suspenseful, it's high stakes, and still focuses around the romance though. Like it's still very heavy romance, but there's a lot more of the action, military, fighting, battles, things like that, but are real life situations that can happen with the military. So this one I really, really enjoyed. I believe I've only read the first 7 books in the series. Regardless, I liked all of them. I just remember I was reading them pretty much back to back, and I stopped because they were getting kind of heavy. And so I stopped, and I just need to pick them back up again. But I loved everything that I had read, all the books that I had read so far. The next book is Hope Flames from J.C. Burton. This is the Hope series. And this book is about this woman named Emma, and she moves to a new town. She's a vet, to open her own vet clinic. She's super independent. She doesn't want a man. She doesn't want anybody to hold her back. She wants to do her own thing and be successful in her career. The love interest is named Luke, and he is a police officer. His police dog is his only real companion in life. He has a family and everything like that are in the story and important in the book. Going forward in the other books, his family becomes more of a prevalent thing, but he just right now is devoted to his dog pretty much, and his police dog. Emma starts having break-ins in her vet clinic, and so she goes to the only person she knows right now in this new town, and that's Luke. And Luke is the only man who has sparked any desire in her in a long time, and so a relationship with them ensues. And this is another series that is pretty steamy and has a lot of those aspects about family and things that I was talking about previously, because each book follows a new family member in Luke's family. So I really like this series. Again, I read the whole thing, and I do think that it's one that's not super heavy. They're not super light and fluffy, cute, fun romances, but they're not super, super heavy either. So I think this is a good series for pretty much anyone who wants to get into more romance. The next book is Archer's Voice from Mia Sheridan. This one is so good. So many reviews on Goodreads are incredible reviews because this book is just so good. This is about Archer, who had damage to his voice box when he was younger, and he can no longer speak. He's mute. Unlike the previous book that I was talking about, Silence, she can talk. She just chooses not to. Archer cannot talk. He has isolated himself. He has moved to this isolated house out in the middle of nowhere. He only comes into town every once in a while to get the few things that he needs from the store and things like that. And he believes it's best to keep himself isolated from the rest of the world because of the traumatic things that happened to him when he was younger. But a woman named Bree arrives to the town. She's new to the town, and she starts becoming curious about Archer, and she knows sign language, and she is used to being around people who don't speak. So she takes it upon herself as a goal to form a friendship with Archer because she knows that he's alone. People have talked about how he's alone and he doesn't talk to people. He doesn't have anybody in his life. And so she takes it upon herself to want to become someone for him. And it kind of goes from there. They do form a relationship. It's such a good book. It does explore the traumas that they've gone through. It is a pretty heartfelt one. So this one is such a great book, and I want everyone to read it. The next book is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I adore this book. This is a book about Macy and Elliot. So it alternates back and forth between then and now, when they were teenagers and the present day. And when they were teenagers, they were the best of friends. They were neighbors in her summer home, her like vacation home that her family went to in the summer. And he would come over, and she created her little walk-in closet in her bedroom into a library. And he would come over and read books with her all day long, every day in the summer. And they formed a relationship. They fell in love with each other. And the night that Elliot professes his love to her, he also crushes her. And 10 years have gone by, and they've not spoken a single word to each other until Elliot shows up one day, and Macy is engaged, planning her wedding to another man, and this chance encounter with Elliot opens everything back up again. And we're going through Macy's feelings, whether or not she wants to even talk to Elliot about why she hasn't spoken to him since that night and the things that have gone on. And Elliot wants her to give him another chance for their all-consuming love. So I loved this book because it has a love of books. And also the romance is just, it's so good. It's just so good. So this one, I know a lot of people do like. Christina Lauren is an auto read for me. I read all of their books. And so this is one of my favorites from them. And I really, really wish more people would read it. So that is all of the recommendations that I'm gonna give today. And if you guys like this video, I can do more romance recommendations because your girl has read so many romances. So let me know if you want more recommendations. Let me know if you read any of these, if you have read these, if you plan to read these. I would be so excited to find out. And that's everything for me today. I will see you next time. Bye.